All right, I'm here with Art Zigman. How are you doing, Art?
Hey Rick, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. Now, I have the Agile values up on the screen right now. I know this is something that you and I always, when we start our classes and when we're trying to showcase people Agile, this is, an artifact. This is a document that we bring up. What does values mean to you, Art, when you think of values?
So, all right. So I'm going to come back to one of my pet peeves about the beginning of Agile,
I love it.
right? So we talk about the Agile values, right? And we say that there are four values, but we don't have four values, right? So we show them four values, and then we have to explain. Wait a minute, we don't really mean four values. We mean they're relative values. It's not that they're absolute values, it's we value one thing over another value.
Wow, okay. That's a great view. I've never actually, kind of talked through that. But I love the idea. So you're not saying absolute. You're saying, hey, we're just having a weight here. We're just showing you that this is more value than this. But the other stuff is also very valuable, right? In a sense.
Right.
So pretty
And
cool.
people hear values, if I was new to Agile, I would be confused, right? Because a value to me is honesty, integrity, right? Humility. These are absolute values that we can agree that these are good things to have.
Compared to individual interaction.
Yes,
That's not a value,
it's
right?
not a
Yeah.
value.
I like it. I like it. So I love the intention. So what should we call this then? If you don't like the word value, how rebrand this topic? Curious,
Right? So these are relative value statements,
right? So value statements. Love it. Love
right? Or we could abbreviate it and say the value statements.
it. Okay, I like it. So here's the next question that I would ask you. So you're starting your class and you have these value statements. Why start with value statements, right? You've got a lot of these people that just want to know the process of implementation, right? Why is it so important to start with this?
Right? So in this modern world, we like things that are short and simple,
Okay.
right? We want to be there was a story where there was a rabbi in the old days, and there were two rabbis. Actually, the names are Hillel and Shammai, right? And they went to the first guy, and they said, and this guy went to him, and he said, "Explain to me the Bible while I'm standing on one foot." And the guy threw him out of threw he just threw him out. He just says, "I can't do it. You're out of your mind," and he just threw him out. He went to the other guy, Hillel, and he said, "Can you explain to me the Bible while I'm standing on one foot?" Right? And he said, "Do unto others what you would do unto yourself. The same way, treat yourself the same way you would treat others the same way you would treat yourself."
Love it.
And that's it.
Love it.
So that's what people are looking for, right? In our case, what we do is we have these four statements, and with these statements, we they embody what do we mean by being agile?
I love it. I love it. So let's start with the first one.
Uh,
Individual interaction over process and tools. When you're teaching that specific statement, value statement, how do you share that with the people learning? How do you
all
get
right.
people?
I look at this as very, very simple, right? And if we think about it as a value, we value individuals, we value people, we value how they work together, how they work together, their interactions, how they work together as a team, how teams work with other teams, right? We can even go up and say how organizations work with other organizations, how we work across organizations, right? That's what we mean by individuals and their interactions. Now, processes and tools, I live and breed process, right? Before I was an agile coach, I was a Lean Sigma black belt, right? I ran Lean Sigma and Lean projects. Before that, I did process from the first day I got a job. It's important, right? Tools are how we get stuff done. They're important, right? But what's different about Agile is that we talk about the value of the people before we talk about processes and tools.
I love that. And one of the things that I also face is the idea is when is this valuable, right? Because think about the work that we do. The work that these teams are doing are complex. So these simple processes and tools that maybe we're really comfortable with are might not work. So we might need to look at it a little different. And to look at it a little different, you have to actually get to that individual interaction. I think that's going to be key in that formula. And I think many people don't look at it by understanding that the problem ahead of us will emerge, right? The problem ahead of us as you're experimenting, as you're figuring this out, only the interaction will allow you to kind of move forward in that realm. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. So what I've noticed that from the way you work with when you approach things, it's always from that individual, from you're coaching people.
I love it. Now, here's the question. I always thought that is so foundation to all the other values. Like I was thinking, do we really need all the other values? Because if you think about it, there's that connection to that individual and feedback. But let's go through it and see if something else. So working software over comprehensive documentation. Yes, it's using the software world. First of all, should we change that word? Should it no longer say software? What do you think, Art?
Yeah, I think so. Look, this whole thing was started by a bunch of, software geeks, right? They were there. That's really who they were, right? Their life was developing software. They just didn't want to be bothered. They didn't want anybody bothering them. They just wanted to develop and get it done, right? In our modern world, we want to get work done,
Love it.
right? We want to make organizations better. So we are past just talking about working software. So we hate change. Everybody hates change. But it may be time, while people are still around to, talk about, let's get together and let's talk about what do we really want to say here. I know people have actually tried modernizing their own versions of what this means, modern versions of the manifesto. Uh, you know, in the meantime, this is what we've got, and we got to interpret it to meet the world that we live in.
Love it. Love it. So this comprehensive, let's talk a little bit more about this comprehensive documentation. Again, working software over comprehensive documentation.
Right.
What resonates to you as you're teaching these classes?
Look, you need documentation. In the software world, you have to document the software. The reason is because when you're not around and you hand it over to somebody else, they need to know what went on so that they have an idea how to make improvements and changes. It's common sense. When you're working with process, you need the process documented.
Yeah.
Right? It's important.
I think the biggest challenge is the over documentation. You've had that experience where you just try to think you can figure it all up front, and you just continue to write. 3 or 4 months down the line, all you have is a beautiful requirements document. You've seen that beautiful requirements document, 300 pages, 600 pages. I think there's a record out there. And then suddenly you got people to sign off on this document and they don't know what in the world they're signing off with because they know this isn't really going to be reality. And somehow they go through that adventure, right?
Right?
Over documentation could be a lot of waste of time, right? A lot of waste of energy trying to figure something up so much up front.
Right. So you're right. In this case, it's not about the working software being more important. It's that you start by creating something that works. And when we iterate on that thing that works, and when we've got something working, then we can go document it.
And what's working is pretty cool because you can actually get to see it. This is where people don't realize it. Many people think they know what they want, right? And many people think that they know how to build it. And many people think they know how to communicate to the people that are building it. And guess what? It doesn't work that easy, right? It's not until they finally get it in their hands do they realize, wow, this doesn't really fit what I need, or this is perfect. You're right on target. Right. So that feedback loop, I think, adds a lot to that.
It
So
does. It does. It does. It's really important. And if you don't get the feedback, so I can remember a case. We did create a red team after spending millions of dollars and creating a solution for a customer. And we start and we st- and it took months to write all the documentation and capture all the requirements and build this thing. And 9 months later, we rolled this thing out, and the customer says, "Well, we got this key user here, and we forgot to talk to them, so we can't use it."
you could have spent that $1 million somewhere else. Come on. We got a lot of other ways to spend that $1 million. All right. So we're going to head to the third one. So
All right.
customer collaboration over contract negotiation. That is a scary word, especially when we had talk to banks and we talk to some of these legal institutions, right? That contract is really important. So what do you say to them on this one?
So this was hard. Um, this came about from practical reality, right? In the real world, it, and let's say that, and even within a company, right? There's a negotiation between the business side and the technology side. Imagine now you're contracting and you're contracting for somebody to do work for you, and this developer group comes to you and says, "I'll tell you what, we'll work together and we'll build something, and you just keep paying me until you got what you're happy with." And what would happen is the company would say, "Get lost." Right? They used to saying, "Here's my contract. I'm going to give you $100,000. You're going to give me you're going to deliver what it is I asked for, and that's the way it's going to be." So that was the contract, right? And they negotiate over the contract. And so it's not an easy thing, but what we have to get to in Agile is a trust relationship between the contractor and the business where they start, and that's why you would not do a whole long contract for everything, but you start with small pieces and deliver a piece at a time and build up that trust.
I love that earning your trust, right? And I think that's what people forget when it comes to Agile. They think it's just a blank check. You have to earn your trust every sprint, right? You're delivering something of value where the business can actually, you know, learn a lot from it or actually use it to actually get, funding, right? So it's really, really important. I love the way you explained that. Thank you, Art. Now let's try that last one, Art.
All
So
right, let's try the
responding,
last one.
responding to change over following a plan. Think about, wait a minute, we don't need a plan. That's what I hear from everybody. We don't need a plan. That means we can just start going at it and forget about this roadmap. Is that what that means?
I don't know. What do you think?
I think so he's kicking it right back. That's what a coach does. Just so you know, he's using his coaching technique. For me, as a business owner, you need to understand the bigger picture. What are we engaged on? Are we engaged on something that's just a 6 month thing, or is this something multiple years, right? That helps me kind of self-understand. Now, I also know how people take plans. That means many people, how do I say this? They manage to that plan. You're off schedule. You're not doing the thing. So you're way off compared to stating, like you said earlier, it's a collaboration with you and your customer to say the industry has changed, right? There's been adjustments in priorities. There's things we need to do to take over this specific area that just happened. That's that partnership you talked about earlier, Art. That's where I think it really plays a part because you understand a plan is important and you need to have it, but do you need to have it at such a low level that causes, you know, throwaway or time being consumed on something that they're losing focus of executing today? Here's the perfect scenario I use, Art. You deliver good on these 2 weeks, then I feel more comfortable that you can deliver in the month. You deliver in the month, then I feel more comfortable you could deliver that whole initiative, right? So, like you said earlier, that trust is earned, not given, right? So that's how I feel. Did I miss anything, Art?
No, no, no. I see this as kind of like a variation on the one beforehand, right? Because the other one talks about the contract and that piece of it. This is now how you work, whether there's a contract or whether you're doing this even by yourself within your own team.
I love it.
Still
So,
going to follow this concept and respond to change. So in Agile, that's why we have demonstrations, right? And in Scrum, they're every 2 weeks. But that's what's important is demonstrate, work with where you're working, just like it says over there, you're working with the customer, you're working with your product owner, right? And you're continually evolving and changing based upon what you're showing them and then them giving you feedback.
spectacular. So we talked about the four values, but now
Or
one of
value
the
statements.
value statements, guys, let's rewind this and make sure we say value statements. Now, one of the things that I also kind of think about as I'm giving these classes is starting with values. That just sounds so weird. Somebody from a technology perspective, that just throws people off a little bit. But values has is so important because if you really think about the work that you do in front of you, right? Values is the root of it, right? If you take care of that, all these other additional process and practices can kind of align to those values, right? So that's why I love that it's the first thing we talk about when we kind of address agile and the learnings of agile. So, guys, Art, what would be the last word you want to end this session with? Just curious, or last statement.
I'll follow up on what you're saying, right? The value statements here is the beginning, right? There's another 12 principles that we talk about, which we can also modify slightly for the modern world. Um, and together this comes out of the manifesto and then we'll this is really just the beginning, where we have gone with Agile from software development into corporate governance and organization structure and change and DevSecOps and and all the other pieces that come into Agile. But this is where we start. It's all about the people.
Love it. So again, we want people to make sure they follow us, make sure they like us, and we want to continue to give you more content. So again, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back next time.